So I've been going kind of back and forth with the idea of buying a twin disc because I just didn't want to spend the money. It's a lot of money. Like the Clutch Masters is like almost $1,700, and there's really not a lot of other options for my platform, mainly because it's a Mazda engine and I'm running a Toyota transmission. So whoever I buy from, I have to be able to buy, the clutch and pressure, or the flywheel and pressure plate, and then the clutch disc to go with the transmission that I'm running. Clutch Masters will do that pretty easily. You just buy their flywheel, and then you buy the Mazda flywheel, and then you buy the Toyota clutch pack. Blah blah. Pretty easy peasy. But like I said, I didn't want to spend $1,700. I'm really hoping this doesn't come back to bite me. So I went ahead and I bought one of these, one of these Chinese deals. So yeah, I don't know if any of you guys have seen these things online from, assuming it's Adlerspeed. I'd say Adler, whatever. Those won't be going on the car anywhere. Unless this thing performs amazingly well, who knows? So before in the past, when I've talked about Chinese products, usually a lot of them are in that realm of counterfeit. It's usually a case of someone from the U.S. or some company has someone has offloaded their manufacturing to some Chinese company because it's cheaper, and then that Chinese company will then begin to sell those parts under their own name, or sell the plans or whatever, or once they have the tooling, they sell the tooling to someone else, or what have you. I don't think that's the case in this one. I've been trying to find something that looks like this, and I can't find anything that looks anything close to it. So, it's a twin disc, chromoly flywheel, aluminum pressure plate, blah blah, copper centered, or centered, however you say it, disc. It's a 7.25 inch disc, which is pretty standard. It's a 8-leg design, which is what throws me, because most twin discs I see on the market are all 6-leg. Quartermaster does make or it's either Quartermaster or Tilton, or maybe both. They do have 8-leg designs, but none of them look like this. In fact, a lot of them, the legs are on the flywheel, and then the plate is just flat and bolts to the flywheel, or the steps, if you will. In this case, the steps are on the pressure plate, which isn't uncommon. Like I said, it's just that most of the ones I've seen have all been 6-leg designs. So yeah, I was really kind of hoping that I'd just be able to find like a company that was close to this, but I really can't. So I don't know. This may be a 100% proprietary thing by Adlerspeed. Maybe they just manufacture their flywheels, and they just, it wouldn't be too hard to have the dimensions for something, because these 7.25 inch clutches are pretty standardized. Like if you look at Tilton and Quartermaster, they're like all basically the same for the most part. And then looking at some of the other ones out there, they all kind of stick to the same design, and so they're kind of interchangeable, interswappable. But like I said, I haven't been able to find anything that looks like this. So, like I said, with modern CNC machining and whatnot, this could just be their own design. These clutches are fairly simple, compared to your standard stamp clutches, these covers are pretty simple, because this diaphragm, I want to say that these are standard. These are pretty standard pieces. Like you can order I'm pretty sure you can order replacements from like Quartermaster and whatnot. So I don't know. So anyways, this cover, I mean, from a machining standpoint, it's a pretty simple piece if you've got, you know, the tooling to spin something like this out. Some odd little machine marks in there, actually. But I mean, otherwise, I mean, the quality of it seems fairly niche. You know, there's no serial numbers on anything. It's like a high point from the ghetto. There's no track in this thing. So, like I said, it looks good. I really don't have a whole lot to say because I don't have a whole lot to go for. I tried researching, trying to figure out who they're manufacturing for and whose design they copied, but like I said, you really don't have to copy a design when you have Quartermaster and stuff out there that are making floaters and disc and everything, and they're pretty standardized, and all you gotta do is put the right hub on it. The only thing special that they had to really make was the flywheel and obviously the pressure plate, and you have to make sure that you've got the right step height between the flywheel and the pressure plate and everything. But I'd imagine those are pretty simple things to figure out, you know. So I don't know. None of this is SFI blah blah. Instructions are surprisingly good, and I say surprisingly because it's not in English. It's actually very readable and actually all makes perfect sense. And like usually stuff like this you buy, there's like no instructions, you know. They just say, oh, for a professional install only and whatnot, but these actually have some pretty nice instructions. They even tell you about putting in a pedal stop so you don't overextend the clutch. So anyways, that's the guy I'm gonna try. I mean, it looks good. Hopefully it doesn't explode, you know. These floaters look pretty solid. Nice, and there's a little bit of debris on there, or a little bit of rust forming, but came all the way from China, and so, you know, being on the ship and whatnot, it is, you know, that's to be expected. When I got it, it wasn't in a plastic bag or anything, because customs had gone through the box and they didn't even pack it back up right. The flywheel was sitting up against the side of the box here. You can see where the box is actually kind of ripped, where the flywheel might have actually come through. I don't know. I don't see any damage to it. Yeah, they didn't. Customs didn't pack it back up into the packaging the way that it should have been. Like I said, these discs don't have a whole lot to go on here because I got there's nothing to go off of. There's no serial numbers. There's no markings on them. They look like a pretty standard replacement 7.25 inch disc, 7 1/4, or well, it's more than a quarter, 7 1/4. So yeah, I don't know. You can see the center side, it's heat treated, hopefully correctly, so hopefully it doesn't strip out. Got your mid floater plate. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot to go off of. I don't have a whole lot to talk about. I mean, it looks good. It all looks decent. I ordered another set of discs just in case, because, you know, twin discs don't really last all that long. I mean, it looks like it looks like the flywheel that's in the car, honestly. I mean, obviously it's machined differently, but it's like it doesn't have the steps because it's designed for the twin disc. But I mean, it's a fairly solid piece. Got some, I guess this is where they balanced it. That's a whole lot of material to remove from one side to balance it. Especially when you consider how outward that is. So I don't know. Like I said, hopefully this thing doesn't explode and take my ankles out. But we're going to be throwing this in the car. So wish me luck. So I'm hoping this doesn't make the car completely undrivable on the street. A lot of people say they're fine. Not these particular clutches, but twin disc in general. You know, some Some people are like, yeah, no, it's a nightmare on the street. And some people are like, yeah, no, it just takes some getting used to. I don't drive the car that much on the street, just back and forth to work sometimes and out to the local meets and whatnot. But anyways, for those of you not familiar with the channel, this is what this guy is going into. So this is my 1993 Ford Escort. It's got a couple of bolt-ons. So yeah, for those of you not familiar, this is what this clutch is going to be going into. This is my 1993 Ford Escort. As I said before, it has gone 10.6 at 133. That was on the old build where it made 500 like maxed out. I think it went 10.6 at like 480 or something like that. Since then, it's been rebuilt. When it went 10.6, it had like a bunch of bent valves in the head, and it was kind of hurt. And it was also 8.5 to 1 compression. I bumped it up to 9 to 1 compression, and actually it was 8.3 to 1 compression. Now it's 9 to 1 compression. Had an old log style manifold. I went ahead and built a nice fancy tubular manifold. Don't laugh at my welds too bad, because that's my first time doing something like that, building something like that. So I think it came out all right, since I've never done it before. Like I just learned TIG welding like a year ago, if that, and I haven't really done it very much. I digress. Yeah, so we're gonna go ahead and start pulling this thing apart and get that clutch in there. Unfortunately, to get to the transmission, I have to pull the entire engine because, like I said, it's running a Toyota transmission. It's an E153 out of a MR2, and it is a big boy, and there is no room to slide that transmission off this thing inside the engine bay. It is right up against, I actually have to hammer the frame wheel in to fit the transmission, so even if you tilt it, there's no room, because then there's no room on this side too. There's no clearance on the pulley side for the engine to tilt down, so easiest thing to do is pull the engine, which isn't too bad, because I built this thing knowing the engine was going to come out a bunch of times. So a nice little connector on the firewall there, and take the intake out, take the battery out, intercooler and all that stuff out, radiator out, pull the axles, motor mounts, and it's pretty much out. It's really not that. Oh, I got to pull the turbo off too, but it's not that bad. It's not horrible. Maybe it's just because I've done it so many times. So anyways, we're going to start on that, and yeah. So yeah, here's something I probably forgot to mention. New front bumper. This is a fiberglass bumper. Bought it off of a friend that bought a set from a guy in Puerto Rico. They're based off of the Mazda 323 BG 3-hole. So typically, like in the 3-hole, there's obviously that hole, and there's 2 holes. There's holes here. In this case, they're filled in. Then the artiste who built this also added this lip that's molded in. It's meant to be like a drag bumper. It's meant for drag cars. So it's just meant to be very low wind resistance, just a one opening, blah blah. I think it looks pretty nice. Eventually I'll paint it. I went ahead and made some little fiber or some aluminum brackets on the side to hold it like the stock bumper is held in place. And then I just forgot, I was on picking my nose there. And then these little quick disconnects here too. Pop those out. So that way, take the bumper off. It's pretty straightforward. Pretty straightforward process. Quick disconnects there. Got these little brackets I built, folded them, and then just epoxied them into place. it's been holding up pretty good. You know, daily driving it back and forth to work hasn't come apart yet. Pretty snazzy setup. Alright, so got everything apart, engine's out, transmission is separated. Clutch, it doesn't look bad and doesn't look great. It's fairly smooth, but you can see the discoloration. The discoloration is very even, so I at least know I had it flat. There's no like high spots, there's no hot spots, you know, because a hot spot would indicate a part that's higher than the other. So it was like on this side, there's some material transfer. I can feel the kind of unevenness there. I know this was flat when I put it together, but it's definitely a little high towards the middle. That looks... Flywheel's flat. Flywheel's good. Pressure plate, not so much. Pressure plate has some waviness in it. Definitely high towards this end. So maybe if that was flatter, it would have been alright, but I don't know. Is what it is. Held up decently. When I resurfaced it and put it back together, I didn't really expect it to hold. It was just kind of a Hail Mary. So anyways, everything's apart. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is get this flywheel on. I want to make sure the crank mating surface is clean and flat. Don't want any debris. It needs to be spotless. Use a brass brush. You don't want to scratch it. Don't use anything aggressive. Definitely want to make sure it's good and clean now. This ain't going anywhere. A bit of thread sealer. So I use thread sealer instead of thread locker because, like I said, these bolts, these holes go all the way through, right into the crank, or right into the crankcase. Anyways, yeah, those holes go right through all the way into the crankcase, and you don't want any oil leaking past the bolt threads. Thread sealer or thread locker might seal, but it might not. So, just to be safe, I'll do it this way. Alright, so let's see how this goes. Got our blue thread locker. You know, the instructions actually say to use like red, and that's just insane because I mean these clutches, like Twindisc, like maybe will last like 10,000 miles, maybe. I mean maybe more than that. I don't know. Twindisc tend to not last all that long, so to do something crazy like red Loctite, especially where you can't really get to the place where you need to apply the heat to break those loose, just seems bonkers to me. I always use like a medium strength. You know, red is just, red's like you never plan on it coming out. It's semi-permanent. Alright, so Adler says to torque these bolts down to 18 foot-pounds, or whatever that is in Newton meters. Alright, there it is. She's on there. So we'll see if we can get transmission back on without killing myself. And, yeah. Fun, fun, fun. Alright, so got the transmission back on. Engine and trans is one piece and filthy, and I need to clean everything. Yeah, so my little tool kind of worked. So yeah, this guy kind of worked. The issue was this wasn't quite deep enough, so this didn't really engage the flywheel, or this didn't engage the crank the first time, and so it was like way out of alignment. I didn't realize it was way out of alignment. And it took me like 3 hours to realize. I tried fighting getting this transmission on and could not get the transmission back on. When I had started over, looked at the alignment. Alignment was off, fixed the alignment. Transmission went back on in like, you know, I want to say like a few minutes, but it still took me like a solid like 2 hours to get the transmission back on, just being very careful to make sure I wasn't like, you know, binding or twisting anything. Yeah, so Twindisc. Pain in the ass to get back on, especially if you don't have the right tool. I think this idea works with the centering. I think I need a metal spline tool that's a tighter fit on the disc, and that would work a lot better because there's a lot of movement. Even when the discs are on there, they can still move quite a bit. And I think the actual spline of the transmission is a lot more tighter tolerance than this thing. So. Ideally, you could use the input shaft from the transmission if you got a spare one laying around, but not everyone has that. So I'll revisit this when I have to, but kind of worked, kind of didn't. But yeah, no, it was honestly kind of a nightmare getting that transmission back on. So yeah. I'm going to go ahead, clean some stuff up, and go ahead and stab this engine back into the engine bay. Probably not going to film it, because every time I film stuff, it takes exponentially longer to do so. And I just kind of want to get it done, because it's kind of hot. Filming this after work, I'm kind of tired, and I just kind of want to, like I said, get it done. So, let's get it done. long drive. First thing I gotta say is, yeah, no, this clutch is definitely you definitely gotta be ready. You gotta be ready. It's yeah, definitely like instantaneous engagement. I feel like it's only gonna get worse. The chatter isn't too bad. You hear that a little bit. Say not too bad. It's not horrible. Definitely, if I wasn't 40 years old, you know, I'd probably attempt dailying something like this, but I don't know. Out of myself here. Lots of gas. Definitely just spun a little bit. Definitely a cop sitting next to me. So with day 2 driving this around, it's really not that bad. Like the engagement is like right at the bottom. You got this really small window of like grab, no grab. Once you get used to that, it's really not that hard to finesse the clutch, if you will. about 100, 120 miles on it now at this point. So I think this is probably the best
interpretation or best judgment I can get from it in such a short period of time. Definitely a big change from day 1 to day 2 to day 3 to day 4 as far as the way the clutch engages. Day 1, it was fairly easy to like slip the clutch, you know, and get the car going and kind of ease into things. As the clutch broke in more, that became a lot more difficult. The clutch does not like to slip like at all. Even if you're just barely letting out and giving it a little gas, it just chatters like crazy, which is pretty typical of you know, a unsprung solid disc. Like a unsprung solid disc style clutch. It's made a lot worse with the twin disc because there's so much friction. Even when the clutch is like just barely getting into that friction point, it's a lot of friction. So there really isn't like a whole lot of room to feather and things of that nature. So, you know, I wouldn't daily this thing unless you're willing to make a lot of sacrifices. They do make a street version which has a sprung hub. Maybe at a later date I may change to that. I don't know. This isn't my daily. I do drive it to work, but that doesn't really count because it's not like, you know, my drive to work is just a 20-minute straight shot. It's not a arduous kind of drive, you know. Yeah, I don't think this is something I can personally daily. I mean, I guess I could if I was, you know, 20 years younger and I was willing to deal with it. But yeah, I mean, but it's not that there's anything wrong with this particular clutch. It's just the nature of twin disc and unsprung disc. The other thing, like as far as daily driving, something like this with it being unsprung, you have to be very careful about your downshifts. You should be rev matching if you need to, especially if you're downshifting like to a pretty extreme, you know, from high to low, you know, because there is nothing to dampen that shock. And it basically, like I said, you start letting the clutch out. Once you start letting the clutch out, it pretty much grabs. And so you can't really just like ease the clutch out. So rev matching is like the only thing you really can do to prevent shocking the drivetrain and potentially hurting the input shaft or hurting the splines on the disc or breaking the disc. So something to be mindful of, you know. Like I said, if you're about that life, go for it. If not, they do make sprung versions. If you look at like Clutch Masters, they have a street setup for one disc is a solid metallic disc, the other disc is like a more of a puck style organic disc to make it a little easier to slip and live with. But like I said, that's the nature of a clutch like this. They're not going to be the most friendly, you know. But other than that, as far as the clutch that holds, I did some pulls last night. I didn't have the camera in the car. Did some third gear, you know, third to fourth, second to third to fourth type pulls. I can tell if there's any slipping. I haven't looked at the logs yet. The logs will tell me if there is in fact any slipping. But it definitely felt strong, so I don't think it's slipping. So, like I said, the biggest test is going to be taking this thing to the track, putting the sticky boys on it, and seeing how she does at full power, full boost from dig. Like I said, downshifts, really got a rev match. so light, it's really easy to rev match it. Yep. I think with that'll be it. Like I said, hopefully next time I'll see you at the track. So, until next time.